Politics, where politics always rocks.
Joining me today is Carl Young, founder of NeverTooBusyToVote.com. She spent the first part of her life working in the advertising industry and created one of Atlanta's top 50 ad agencies. She spent the first part of her life doing lots of fabulous traveling, meeting great, amazing clients, loving every minute of it. She got married and had kids and became an artist, writer, and mentor. And she has a mission, and we're going to be talking about her mission today. And she wants every woman in America to get out to vote, and this is a great time with New York just having completed their primaries yesterday with a little bit of drama. So we're going to be talking about some of this as well. Welcome, Kyle. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Hillary. I'm happy to be with you.
So why don't you share with us briefly how you got into this mission? What started this movement for you personally?
Well, I was blogging at multitaskingwoman.com, and one day I was reading an article in the paper, basically, and heard that less than half of the women in the U.S. voted. This was back in 2010, 2012. And honestly, it woke me up, and it made me mad. I'm one person, but I thought, too often I hear people say, oh, no, I didn't get to go vote. The kids, the carpool, the this, the that. I had a meeting, and I just decided that by women talking to each other, which we all know we do really well, we could get more women out to vote. We are the majority of people in this country, but we don't vote that way. So I started talking to my friends, and a lot of them jumped in with me, and we started Never Too Busy to Vote, encouraging every woman to go to the polls and get the people around her to do the same.
Well, I've been looking for your website, NeverTooBusyToVote.com, and I have to say I'm pretty impressed. You have an area on the website called Vote411.org, and it's a great resource for people to get into it, to find out where to register to vote, where you go to vote, the key deadlines for your state. I tested it out for myself. It was accurate with my location to where I needed to go, according to where I was registered. So anybody listening, you can go to 411.org, and you can find out some interesting information. Or if you have somebody that may need that information, please go to NeverTooBusyToVote.com and share that with each other. Kyle, you have a great mission. This is something that people really need to talk more about. There's rumors going around that the New York primary yesterday wasn't fair, that there was a lot of issues with some people being registered as independents. So could you start maybe by talking a little bit about, to our listeners, what's the difference? Why does it matter? Why do we need to register? What's the process? What does it mean? Who cares? Tell us what we need to know.
I think we all learned yesterday that registering is the first step. I'm a big proponent. I feel like anybody when they get a driver's license, they should be able to register to vote. If they go get a library card, they should be able to register to vote. That's true in some states, but not true in all states. And people, a lot of times, it was in the news the other day, I think that 2 of Donald Trump's own children didn't get to vote because they had not registered. If you don't make sure that you are eligible and registered to vote in your specific area. And I think that's what people miss. Different states, different counties, even different municipalities in the counties will have different deadlines for registering or different requirements. So that's where the Vote 411, which is actually a project of the League of Women Voters, which is a very well-known national organization, they do a great job with that. And you can find out the specifics to be sure that you can register. I know right now we're having a special election in the small city that I live in, which is a suburb of Atlanta. And if you are not registered by April the 24th, you cannot vote in the May 24th primary, which is filling a state legislature seat as well as a city council seat. So it's very important to become educated on your particular requirements in your area.
What do you say to people who feel that voting in the primary is not as important or necessary as voting in the actual election. In other words, for people who feel like they don't really have to go out and do it or they have too many other things to do, what do you say to that kind of resistance?
I am pretty famous for quoting my own mother, who always used to say, if you don't use your right to vote, you don't have the right to complain. So if you don't vote in the primary to try to get the candidates that you want to the next level, you can certainly take what happens and who the candidate is that the other people who have voted have chosen. But if you want to have your voice in this country, your vote is your voice. And why would you waste that? It's so easy now with most places having early voting, and a lot of places even voting by mail or electronic voting, that I think there's really no excuse not to vote. And some people will say, oh, I'm not going to vote because I don't like anybody that's running. Well, my response usually to them is, then find the person you like at least halfway or a third of the way or 90% of the way, because isn't it better to have that person giving you part of what you want than 100% of what you don't want?
Well, I would say speak up or forever hold your peace.
Not just for weddings.
Yeah. Well, that's what it comes down to. I think we have to really understand that this is important. And if we just say we don't count or we're just one person, and then 1 million people say that and 1 million people don't get out and vote, then we have 1 million votes that could have counted towards a different future. What are you most concerned about as a woman for the upcoming election? What would you like to share with listeners about your main concerns in general?
I think, again, that as women, we all have such busy lives. If we have children, if we don't have children, I'm an empty nester now. I was stuck in traffic. That's a good reason not to vote. I'm a big get out and plan ahead and go ahead and vote early if you can. Go ahead and vote when you have time, because some people say, oh, I like to wait until Election Day. Then there's a huge rainstorm, or there in the past, in some of the primaries, there have been snowstorms and people couldn't get there, or they would get there and find out, oh, their polling place had changed, it had closed. Arizona was a great example of that, where they had many fewer places. I would say get out and vote early. I would use as an example, you mentioned I'm only one person. We are each only one vote. We each represent one vote. But here's a prime example. In my small city, again, a suburb of Atlanta, we have a city council seat open. In the district that I live in, there are 12,000 registered voters in that district. When I talked to the city clerk, he said, in a special election like this, to fill a partial term, we will be lucky if we get 10% turnout. That is 1,200 votes out of 12,000. There are 5 candidates running for that particular seat. So as you can imagine, every single vote will be critical. And if you just add a few more zeros onto that, you begin to see how every single person getting out to vote in the United States can make a difference. In 2010, only 46% of women voted. That census data, it's 6 years old, but I don't think it's changed a whole lot since then.
What do you say to the woman who says, well, I don't know anything about politics? Do you feel that perhaps there's some intimidation at times for not being educated on exactly what's going on, or even the system itself, let alone the candidates and where they stand?
I think a lot of people do say that, but if you give up that, even reading, your online version of the newspaper, if you do that, or watching television news, if you take that position and say, oh, I just don't know enough, then you are leaving it up to the people who do think they know enough. It's been proven exit surveys, there are people who show up to vote who just pick the name that they like on the list. Now, personally, I don't vote that way, but I would rather have a semi-educated voter or even someone with a little bit of who's voting on one particular issue. I would rather have that voter come out than not to vote at all.
I think we can also go to Rocking Politics archives as well. There's a lot of really helpful shows at sendrocksnow.com where you can look back on some of our archives where we give some information, great places, great resources to read up on information. If you don't know a lot about the laws or you don't know a lot about your candidates, there's some really great .org resources that we have interviewed here at Rocking Politics as well. So I offer that to everybody listening as well. It's really helped, I think, a lot of people to pay very close attention to the realities of what's happening in the political world right now versus just what the media seems to portray. How do you see the media helping or hurting the campaign so far this year?
I think a lot of it has to do with what media you choose to listen to. For instance, I like to follow and listen to a variety of media outlets that I trust. A lot of people choose to listen to maybe they only listen to CNN, maybe they only listen to Fox, maybe they only follow one particular political commentator online. I think, to me, it's kind of a buffet bar approach. I go to NPR, I had to go to CNN, I go to MSNBC, I will listen to Fox News occasionally. I try to look at all sides, and you have to become an educated consumer of the media.
Well said. Thank you very much for that input. As you've moved through, we get closer and closer to the November elections, and we're moving through some of these countdowns to primaries, and we're kind of seeing a fever happen, I think, among people who really feel strongly about a change, a big, big change that has to happen in the establishment itself, and a breakaway from big money, if you will, and kind of a back to grassroots approach to reviving our country. How do you see this manifesting for us moving forward? I don't know anything about your political affiliation. You run a very nonpartisan website, so you're not really, rah-rahing for anybody in particular. So I don't know. I haven't had that conversation with you. I'm not sure what side you're on. So I'm just interested in kind of a neutral outtake on what you think about that. How do you see, I guess my question really is, sorry, I'm kind of going off into 5 different directions here. How do you see all of this kind of manifesting moving forward as we get closer? Do you have a prediction? Would you like to share some of your thoughts on who you would like?
I'm not sure I would be willing to predict. I do not have my crystal ball with me, and even if I did, I'm not sure it's that accurate. But I will say this. I do think we are moving in a direction where people are becoming more vocal and more politically active. Personally, I would like to see people be able to engage openly in exchange of ideas about politics without demonizing the opposite side, whichever side you're on. I think that when we polarize and, somebody goes to the far left and somebody goes to the far right and never the middle shall meet, it's when our country comes to a standstill on both sides. I really am a very strong supporter, again, as you know. Never Too Busy to Vote is nonpartisan, and it's nonpartisan for a reason. I certainly know who I'm going to vote for and who I support. And if you asked me, we met on the street, who are you supporting? I would tell you that because I am happy to share that. I will tell you who I will vote for and why. I will never try to tell you who you should vote for because I respect the other person's right to make that decision. My mother and father, when I was growing up, we used to laugh when we were kids. We'd say, Mom, who did you vote for? Dad, who did you vote for? And my mother and father would say, we don't even tell each other who we vote for. because it's the privacy of the voting booth. It's a secret ballot, if you will. It's a private issue. And I believe that's one thing that's very, very unique to our American culture. And when we have that right, it's just a shame to me. It's a crying shame when people do not use it.
Well said. Thank you so much. We've been speaking to Kyle Young from NeverTooBusyToVote.com. Thank you so much.
You've just been rocked by Rockin' Politics.